But discipline, to me, is different than arrest.
Correct.
So,
Yes, arrest is
Yeah.
one step further. Now, what I was explaining to Will, it didn't have to, he knew, the police just can't go into a student's locker. Administration has to open up the locker. And administrator has to be there. That's an educational school. Maybe that's what they're referring to?
Possible. I mean, we deal with situations like that on a weekly basis. We have that understanding pretty well done. It's the criminal activity.
Right.
Solely
And no one
robbers.
wants to see a kid being arrested. I think we're all understanding of that. But if they are doing something, that shouldn't be there. You know, another question that he brought up, Will, was what happens if there's something in the parking lot? Now, do we move the student back into the building? What happens after 4 p.m. when there's no administrators on property? So there's a lot of unanswered questions on this whole.
I know that MOU is pretty common with a lot of other jurisdictions. They all have them in their safety plans. The wording's different, so it's something that the school district's required to have an MOU, police departments, especially when they're inside there, so there's got to be some sort of.
They probably needed to send all to complete their package. That's my guess. If this board is fine with everything that is that something else that Will had brought up? If this board is fine with this understanding, so be it. You know, we live with it. I think we need to take a look at it and make sure that we're fine with it.
Was there a deadline that had to be agreed upon, or
I'm sorry?
was there a deadline at all?
Nope.
No.
And how this came about, Friday night, I happened to be in a football game, and I was asked if I signed the MOU, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Never received it, and I received it yesterday, and I sent it right off to you. They signed it August 26th, right? They probably said, oh, wait, we got the.
Once again, I'll was available tomorrow, I'll call him when I'm in. Have him speak to the attorney, maybe add a sentence, clarify it, and then bring it back to the board.
I want to say it's Dennis Shore, is their school board attorneys. Okay. Anybody have any questions before we go to public comment? Okay, public comment, number 6. If you do, please state your name, address, and we'll start a 3-minute clock.
Terry Hughes, 102 Capitol Drive. I got 3 items. Number 1, have the church and I are still waiting for a meeting between you and this jerk-ass fire inspector.
Okay, we're not going to add comments to names, okay?
Are we going to have a
Let's-
meeting?
Let's be adult about this. I spoke to the code enforcer. That came from the county, so we have to bring the county into this discussion. So it's more than just the 3 of us.
How did the
now
county
has-
get involved?
I don't.
The county said you and the fire
A phone call
inspector.
was made by the code enforcer with my approval, yes.
Yeah, but basically we're talking about nonsense.
And hopefully, Terry, it is all nonsense.
Obviously I have water and obviously I have sewer, and that was what was told.
Hopefully
And water
it
and
is all
electricity.
nonsense.
Number 2, that came up with the milling. I was talking to Wayne, both he and I were involved in paving projects, and we think you should authorize Chris to go to the Orange County Superintendent's meeting. I didn't know anything about paving. There were actually 2 guys in the water department who did, and so basically they did the paving in the village of Suffern, but I had gone to the Rockland County highway superintendents, and I was able to write all the various contracts and how to do it and so forth and so on. And basically, you learn a lot that way. Chris is probably more valuable going and what he can pick up there than he is doing work around here. I mean, he's supposed to have a big view of what's going on, and I think that's the case. Number 3, planning board. I think we just saw with this lady here, the issues you have when you got rid of the planning board and now you people are the planning board. I had a person came up to me, Suzanne Gunn, and indicated that basically when you eliminate the planning board, of course, you become the planning board. That's under state law. And evidently you approved the Chase Bank, and it changed it's changed the plan. She's had a number of complaints. She's going to attorney. I'm not getting involved in that because that's basically a legal issue. But the long and short is, even under the planning board, she was entitled to screening, the same as on Brotherhood Way, where the house across the street from the traffic light got screening. She hasn't gotten it. She has other allegations. I can't state whether they're true or false or anything like that. But I think it's maybe a time that you start. Do you have a planning board now, or are you still a planning board?
We are still the planning board.
It's about time you went around to, have you guys gone through the continuing education for planning board?
No.
And basically, that's required under state law.
Yeah.
You're supposed to, every year, you're supposed to do like
I
that.
just want you to back up. I'm going to back you up just a little bit. And then, okay. The Chase Bank was approved by the planning board that was in place.
Correct. We did not approve.
We did not have anything to do with Chase Bank.
I've heard 2 people tell me otherwise. Okay, well,
I'm
that's a
telling
fact.
you-
It's either A or B.
I'm telling you the truth.
But I understand that basically based on what planning board would be and the DEC laws on light pollution, she was entitled to screening in front of her house for the lights that are
Now,
coming.
let's go back, to the same, the reason the planning board resigned, okay? I sat here one night with the planning board and Chase. Chase had their attorneys, their architects, their engineers, okay, the contractors, as well as representatives from Chase. The planning board that night opened up the plans for the first time,
When was that?
whenever that time was.
Okay.
It was the first time that they looked at the plans.
They had looked at the plans before?
No. And I
The
suggested,
chairperson of the planning board didn't have a sit-down meeting?
I suggested to the planning board at that time that we need to have a work session, okay, to iron out 98% of the questions that would come up at the public hearing. All right? After I said that, I'm resigning. 3 people resigned instantly because they did not want to come out, because that's not how it was.
Well, let's go back to where the planning board was. As John Spear and I set it up, that we would have a meeting with the applicant, that's the term you actually used, and we would make sure we wouldn't cover every item that was going to come up on a public hearing, which we can't do because we don't know until the public hearing. But under municipal law, the application has to be complete. An incomplete application cannot be acted upon. So long and short is, I don't know how many times in the past, the applicant would come forward and basically it turned out they hadn't put down about 3 or 4 things, or they hadn't provided like a drainage plan that was required to be provided. And so the point is you couldn't have the meeting because the application was not complete. So what we would do is we would go over with, whoever they brought to make sure the application was complete, and then it would come there. So I find it very odd that that was the case that basically it was given that time. But how was it approved then? Did they have the public hearing or what?
With Chase? Yes.
There was a public hearing.
Terry, it's way beyond 3 minutes.
I can't hear you.
We're way beyond 3 minutes. We're at 5.5 minutes, so we're gonna cut it off.
Yeah, I know, but you were like
But the
8
bottom
minutes
line
was
is,
late here.
we didn't fire anybody. They all
Pardon me?
resigned. We didn't fire the planning board. They resigned. And we've
No, I
been trying
understand
to
that.
fill it ever
I understand they
since.
resigned, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Anybody else with comments?
So that's what happened. So that's the truth.
but you need a planning board.
We have,
Yeah, we've been looking.
Pardon me? But you're required to have the training too, you ought to look that
well,
up.
we're looking for planning. We don't need to spend another night out of the house, okay? But I felt it was more important to make sure our zoning board was in place because we cannot be the zoning board.
No, that's a judicial,
So-
that's a quasi judicial, and that's the only thing that's really required. That's why you can get by without a planning board, but you can't get by without the zoning board of appeals under the 27 decision.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Are you sure?
I was away for a couple of weeks, so I was fresh in my mind.
Well, I hope you had a good time.
Tomorrow morning.
Second?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, thank you.
What's